confess that's true.
And with me is also Tim.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Plein Air Easton Podcast. My name is Tim Wagon. I'm here with Marie Nuttall, and that's going to be about as formal as we get for this show today. Because we've got Kirk Larsen with us, artist, painter, sculptor, actor, that knocker over of things.
Throwing
here.
that was
Welcome
great.
to the Plein Air Easton Podcast for 2023. We're online. We're live inside the Armory on Harrison Street in Easton, Maryland.
Headquarters.
Headquarters.
That's what
Armory.
we're branding.
Calling
this year.
headquarters, calling headquarters.
Yeah, headquarters. So if you're online, we'll be running these things all week. There's a schedule at pleinaireaston.com.
Yes.
Or you can call Marie directly at her house if you want to find out. But there's all these. We have a bunch of podcasts lined up, a bunch of demonstrations lined up, live painting demonstrations, which are free and really a great opportunity for if you're a burgeoning artist or experienced artist. You normally don't get these type of demonstrations free. They're probably actually pretty can be pricey at times. So that's part of Plein Air Easton 2023, and they've been doing that for years. And most of them will be taking place at the headquarters. There's one with Tillman Island tomorrow with John Caggiano. Everything else I think that I know about is in this building or across the street at Christ Church. And Kurt will be doing one for us at 1 o'clock today.
Yeah.
So
And incidentally, they're also absolutely fantastic. If you happen to like art, love art, you're a collector, or you're not even sure, if you live in this vicinity or are passing through, you really should stop in. It's a once-a-year event. It's like no other thing on the planet. And you stop in and you may find yourself maybe going home with a painting.
Yeah.
And Marie,
I
you
love
can
that.
take this wherever you want, but Kirk, you are an alumnus here. You did not get juried in, but you're back anyway. Can you talk about that? Like when you say it's a great event and there's no other event like it, what sort of draws you back here? I know you can say that, it's a great festival or whatever, but what really brings you back here?
I discovered this event online. A fellow artist had done the event, and when I first looked at it, I found the artwork fascinating. I took a look at everyone who at the time had a website. This is back in the
20 years ago.
2009.
Yeah.
And I applied. It took me 4 years to get in. I also drove down from New York and did the quick draw 1 year, hoping to win that to get in. And I finally got in 2011, had a 6-year run. Took me about 4 years to get back in. I got back in during pandemic plein air. That's a whole nother subject.
Yep, that was
a great
unforgettable.
subject, but and then was here in 2021. And this year, although I did not get in, I was asked to do a demo. And I love the area. I love the artists, the subject matter, the event. And so I said, absolutely. Now, that being said, I got into town a day or so early, and it was the first time I've ever painted in Easton where I wasn't under the psychological gun of competing. And there is a difference between painting for yourself and painting in a competition.
What's that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Ideally, the artist still paints what they want to paint. I'm I'm a heavily addicted sailboat racer, and there's a great analogy to that. I love the competition aspect of racing. I don't find it so much about the other boat. The other boat is a fulcrum for myself and my crew to find the best ability in ourselves with given conditions on a given day. With a plein air competition, especially surrounded by such wonderful talent, knowing that they're out there painting pushes me to be a little more insightful, dig a little deeper, and find the best in myself on that day, morning, evening, overnight, whatever, with the conditions given.
Right.
So, Kirk, that sounds like really intense. Would you say that the other side of that, like painting for yourself, is more heavy into inspiration and less intensity? Is that like the adjective that you would use, or?
Yesterday I painted down in St. Michael's, and the only difference in that painting was that I didn't have to leave to go to attend one of the necessary, the obligatory functions for the artists.
Well, now remember, they're not obligatory. They're optional, but they're highly encouraged. So
Well,
you
let-
kind of got to.
A great segue into my first year here.
Okay.
In 2011, texting was new. The majority, pardon me, the majority of texting at the time consisted of messages like, I'm going into the supermarket. I'm coming out of the supermarket.
Right.
And I thought, I have no interest in that. You know, if you need to get in touch with me, call me.
Right.
And the esteemed Jessica Bellis was standing next to me at a pre-event paint out at the Inn at Perry Cabin. Being a sailor, when I got in, I looked up the Sails and Ales event at the Tred Avon Yacht Club, and we were going to be painting the races. I mentioned that I sail on a type of boat called Shields and looked it up, and I mentioned that when I got here. So Jess is next to me, and she says, oh, I got a text you might be interested in. I rolled my eyes like, oh, great, who went into the supermarket? And she says, oh, one of the people that owns a Shields is going to be racing on Friday night, and they might be interested in a painting.
There you go.
So these
Okay, what
suggested events, and this is my advice for artists that are new and experienced.
Okay.
I came into that first event with the mindset that the advice and suggestions being given to me might hold great value. I ended up doing a painting of the boat in the mooring field where I was told it would be, and then I also painted it during the races. It turns out there were two owners to the boat, and both paintings were the first two paintings to sell at Easton that year.
Success. Yay.
So it's suggested, but as an artist, we are often considering, where do I sell a painting? Will it sell? Is it sellable versus what I want to paint?
Right, like you got to eat.
And going back to the amazing Jess at the first event I did, she claims not to remember it clearly, so maybe Tim, you know if you have this recorded.
Yeah.
She gave the Newt Rockney speech for artists, which for me was one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced in my life. She stood there, or I should say walked back and forth on the stage of the Avalon saying, I know it's going to be hot. I know it's going to be intense. You might not feel inspired. You might be exhausted. Well, everybody quickly, look to your left, look to your right. Know that they're out there painting. You don't have to worry about the sales. We're going to bring the buyers. Your job is to paint. And if you think you can't paint or it's too tough, dig down and find another painter. Wow. And
My,
I
how
was
times
like,
have changed.
well,
We're all getting that's 10 years, 12, 13 years ago. Yeah, we're all a little older, right?
yeah, that year I did 23 paintings in 12 days. By the way, the heat is serious. Sometimes it's been a little cooler, but you've got to take that seriously. And so I knew people would be upset with that, and I said, I'm going to make that my friend. I drank copious amounts of liquid. I have a rule: if someone offers you water, even if you got a bunch at your feet, take that water, drink it now. Drink Gatorade. If you have coffee or alcohol, take more water. So I don't paint as feverishly, but this, it's just suggested that you be there. Sometimes I've been to these events where I elect to make that trip, and I meet a collector, have a conversation, and later on they want to see my work.
Right? It's all about connection.
And it's okay if you want to stay and paint where you're at, but I have found that some of these suggested things often lead to a good connection, but more importantly, sometimes that does keep the deadline of finishing the painting in the forefront. And I find that just like with the sailboat racing, it's not like you get off the boat in the middle of the race and read a book.
Right, you have
So-
to finish.
Yeah, and
Oh, that's a good analogy. I like that.
There you go.
I
that
like that.
that push
Visual of that.
to paint more. I don't even want to say push. It's in my bio. It says I love the camaraderie and the competition and the atmosphere. And I find that sometimes I can dig down and get a painting when I didn't expect to. I have an axiom I go by. All right, you ready? In case you're writing this
Get
down.
this down,
at home.
everybody.
Instead of pondering why not, just try. And I've done it at times when I didn't have enough time to do a paint. Oh, there's only 40 minutes.
I think that's the title of his podcast. Is that,
There
did
you
he
go.
just,
Yeah,
did he
that's
just
a good
title
title,
it?
yeah.
And Friday night, the public was invited to paint with the painters, if I read that correctly. And I went downtown, and there was this wonderful theatrical setup. And I looked at
I
the
knew
radar.
that would be your jam. As
I
soon as
looked
saw
at the radar, which, by the way, if you look at the radar, look at it in motion.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's over in Baltimore, and it's not upon the quick draw, but it may be.
Well, it's funny because we don't usually get Baltimore weather. We get DC weather because it all
well,
kind of like moves up the coast a little bit.
I'm not from this area, so I just look at the big red
And
splotch
sometimes they
over
just
the mainland.
they just split and go all the way around us.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't look probable, but that night, even as it started to drizzle, I said, let me condense my stuff and keep painting, and I got a little more painting time in.
Now, Kurt, painting, but you're also a multidisciplinary artist.
Yes.
You're a sculptor as well. You're an actor as well. How did you sort of were you ever a businessman? Were you ever
Yeah, what came first?
Yeah, how did you pick all four of because there's another art medium that you're in, I think, as well, isn't it?
I've been self-employed pretty much since around 1981, 82, and no, 86, excuse me. I didn't really grow up with the business side of it, so I, like many other artists, were not fond of paperwork, and I look forward to the step of having a personal assistant, because it would be great if I can just concentrate on painting, creating art, doing podcasts in Easton. We should do this in the winter. It'll be warmer.
We've got some banging AC here, folks. Frigid. So which one was first? I didn't hear the answer. Which one of your crafts, your arts, came first?
I
in your
started
career?
drawing on all the notepads in the house. Back in the old days of dial phones, you took messages by hand.
Yes, you did.
And all these different pads, I would draw on them, and my parents did get me an oil paint kit when I was 7 years old. And although I wasn't painting what was in front of me, there is a photograph of me in my fringe Davy Crockett jacket at 7 years old, sitting in front of the
can
house
see
in a
it. I
chair
can
with an
see it.
easel. There's a telltale sign there. Always loved the painting and art. I went to School of Visual Arts for illustration. And at the time, the process was weeks. You did preliminary sketches, thumbnails, and then you picked some to refine, and then the following week you refined that sketch and you hired models or found references in a magazine and or from an existing photo. And then we would transfer that and refine it. And so I schooled with this notion that it took weeks to do a painting. And a fellow illustrator asked me to sit in on some of his classes with him when I was in between work, and we went to Coney Island, and at 10 a.m. he said, okay, your assignment, everybody, is to go out and do 4 finished illustrations, capture all the atmosphere, the filigree, the lights, the action of Coney Island.
Wow.
Have them camera ready, print ready, do 5 of them, and be back here at 2 o'clock. Or 3 o'clock, and my head spun around, didn't even snap the vertebrae, went fully around. Like, what? And that day, I produced more artwork in one day, and I was like, wow, I didn't know this was possible.
But you're like, this is it. This is my jam.
I started painting on location. I tried in acrylics at first, which dried too quick. And I actually fought the weather. One time I drove from Long Island, where I live, up to the Catskills to paint mountains, and it fogged over and hazed over in hot summer heat, a foretelling. And I eventually got into the oils, which helped. But I did say this in the last podcast and probably every interview I've ever stated. The greatest thing about plein air is it combines two of the best things in the world. One is painting, and the other is being outdoors.
There you go.
We have a description for plein air, and then we're talking about the very first village in France that did it, and what's the romance in these sort of things for you? Because strolling on you weren't there last night, you were somewhere else painting, but like, it was, when the mood is right for something like this, it really works, and it's a very, very unique event. I mean, and not just talking about but the romance of like painting it outside, and the people walking around, and the dresses flowing, and their hats are on, and does that affect you at all, or are you just worried about selling a painting?
Oh, no. Primary for me is, number one, to get to painting. I love painting, and I know that no matter how much of a struggle it may be to get to a spot or set up, and pardon me to digress for a moment, my first plein air in Easton, the temperatures were off the charts, 90% humidity.
Yeah.
We did go over 103, 105 one day.
Yeah.
The quick draw was I chose a spot by the flea market, whatever. And
There was one plein air here where there were 3 ambulances on Dover
Yeah.
Street on the quick draw one year.
yeah. And
So this year I've
I
just
was
given
like,
them
I-
a station so
I
they
thought
can
I had
set up.
Lollapalooza. I was
and the best painting subject for me was right in the sun at 98 degrees at 9 a.m. And I say I will go where the painting is rather than where I'm comfortable. That said, sometimes you've got to make accommodations or an adjustment. But I find that when you're there, like the party you described, it's wonderful to be there. And when you're an artist that paints that kind of stuff, that emotional feeling you have of, wow, look, or the play on Friday night. So, wow, look at the backlight on those wings. And it was an updated, modern version of Midsummer Night's Dream for anyone who wasn't there. And there were some actors dressed as fairies. And when they turned facing the lights, their wings looked like they were glowing. And I know at least 5 of the artists from different angles painted the glow of the wings.
Gotcha.
So for us, when we have that atmosphere of the party, there's a part of us that wants to share the emotion that we feel.
That's right.
And as I've said for me, I capture the drama or serenity of that moment.
So you guys actually see magic.
We feel it.
Yeah. That's what I'm
And
hearing.
our job is to translate it so that
Right.
you feel what we felt.
Exactly.
And
Or, here's a
I
nice
thought I
segue.
was getting some credence in my headphones there for a second. I'm going to ask one more question. We're going to take a break, Kirk. So, being in the moment, as an acting term, most people know it as an acting term. Is there such thing as, in the moment for an actor, it goes moment to moment, to moment to moment to moment to moment when you're there. Does that term translate at all to painting?
Yeah, sometimes there's a subject matter that's so complicated that you see it, you feel it, but you look and maybe there's 150 boats there, or there's a crowd. And recently I did a painting where it was a complex subject, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this shape. And it was a shadowed part. And then I painted the next shape. I remembered the painting, that's even better. Instead of it was a Volkswagen Beetle, a rusted old pollen-covered Beetle in Atlanta, Georgia, sticking halfway out of a carport. And the Volkswagen Beetle there's no square lines on it, and they're nuanced. And I
Right.
said, I've never painted one before, and I was on the gun because turn-in for competition paintings was 7 p.m., and I was somewhere at 4:30, 5 o'clock at this point. I had already submitted everything else as this had to be competition painting. And I told myself, relax, just paint the first shape.
Yes.
And then paint the shape of the window. But the window had reflections, so that was a dark and a light. And that was very moment to moment. And I happened to capture a lot of it on time lapse, which is pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
A nice thing about Plein Air Easton and it's important to be cooperative with it, is that they take care of a lot of the publicity and the promotion. But as an artist, going back to the businessman thing, is we're the marketer, we're the recorder. At these events, we cannot use
We're the
photography.
janitor, we're
Yeah.
the,
And,
we're the
and the
purchaser.
volunteer and the supporter, everybody chips in. So there's all these things in our head of what we have to do. Remember to take a picture before or during the painting or at the end of the painting or an image before you frame it and sell it. Like, oh, I never got a picture of my painting.
Right, because for every competition, it's different, right?
Yeah. And yet, the process of being cognizant of that and how much collectors love to see a work in progress, or somebody might want to know, might get a message from Susie saying, hey, can you send me a picture of what you're working on? Somebody's looking for that view,
Yes. Yep, happens
And-
a lot.
Yeah, so when I'm actually painting, all that falls away. Now I'm painting. So I remind myself, like sometimes my energy might drop off to the point where I feel like I'm going to fall asleep. And that's simply the body's own way of conserving energy. Tim, you work with a lot of actors,
Yeah.
and you've probably seen it a ton backstage, and perhaps yourself as producer, director, cinematographer,
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah.
You feel like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Your body is preserving your energy, and then when they call action or you step onto stage, you suddenly find all the energy you need is there. Sometimes painting, day after day, it can build up, and you can feel fatigued. Reminding yourself that you enjoy it and staying hydrated is really important.
Kurt, we're going to take a short break here right now. We'll be back with more with artist, actor, artist, Kurt Larsen. Want to remind everybody, I think there are very few tickets left for the collector's party on Friday night. This is the beginning of Plein Air Easton. We're in really the second or third day of a 12-day event. So if you're listening online, you're close. We are going to be here all week. We're at the headquarters on Harrison Street in Easton. We have a couple people in the audience. We might do some audience questions, but I think we did that last year. It worked out pretty well. But we're here. You can watch us online, but if you are close by, please come by. We'd love to see you. There's wonderful artwork already hanging in the headquarters, again, at South Harrison Street, and it'll be coming in all week. Paintings will be coming in, and the exhibit keeps changing. And
All
then-
for sale.
All for sale. And then, of course, the collector's party is one of the wonderful exhibits in Talbot County every year. So we'll be right back. This is Plein Air Easton in just a few minutes.
Hey, let me just plug the.
Yeah, go, we're not going anywhere. We're right here still.
Hold
Here we are. We just want to plug that JFM Frames is set up. Yeah, in
Best frames in the world.
In the back of headquarters. So that's another incentive to stop by and get some really high quality frames for some really great prices.
All kinds of sizes and shapes and colors and textures and really nice people to deal with as well. So don't forget JFM Frames is here. And there'll be artists around all week. Come visit if you are so inclined. And if you're near, we'll be right back with more Plein Air Easton in just a second.
And it's cold in here, so if
freezing.
you're hot, come on in.
It's like the North
See
Pole
some
on
art.
the stage here. I mean, it's like I'm the Windy City at the North Pole.
And then she grabbed the easel out of the water just before the shark bit the painting.
I wish we were recording that. We just missed that.
Oh,
Welcome back to Plein Air Easton, the podcast. We're here again. We'll make this quick in the headquarters at South Harrison Street.
as opposed to Plein Air Easton, the movie.
Plein Air Easton, the movie. Speaking
Maybe
of that,
that's for next year.
for those of you on this little current pop culture, Kirk, you are on strike. You are an actor. So you're on
Union
strike now.
strong. I am a SAG-AFTRA film and TV actor, and in case anybody has some misguided notion that most actors are wealthy and
Yeah, that's right. It's
living
not
in
true, right?
mansions,
It's not true.
the majority of performers, also Writers Guild of America, there are some changes in media, and there's stuff that's really important that's being negotiated. And I don't want to get off on that track.
That's
too
what I
long,
want to talk about. AI.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about AI, Kirk.
They,
It's coming, right? It's coming. It's not going to go. It's not going to not be coming here.
Some of the negotiators for producers actually put this forth in last week's negotiation. They want to be able to scan an actor and use their image and likeness in perpetuity for no additional money.
No way.
Well, but what about painting?
That's
what about
why-
painting? I mean, what about? You know what I mean? Like, come on.
I know where you're going.
I'm not going anywhere.
But
I'm just asking you.
I know where you're going, but Tim Kelly is a machine, but he's not an AI machine. He turns out paintings. He doesn't, it's actually, we've never looked in the back of Tim Kelly's head. It could be all zeros and ones,
Right. Sure.
He's out there like a machine. I mean, he's determined.
But I mean, no. It's just. I mean, could that affect? I mean, how could that affect you? I mean, what could you say that? Well, I painted it. Well, I like this painting just as much, and the AI did it. What?
I don't know if the microphones are picking up that thunder, but that sounds ominously poignant.
It was pretty close.
Ooh, yeah, that was
Yeah,
nice.
I
wasn't it?
think it's certainly something to be concerned about. For myself, I still find that the actual artist is still producing something that's not there. They can generate music, they can generate writing, but we are the purveyors of this valuable asset.
Well, let me put this question. So I've been thinking about this, like, because we sell concerts at the Avalon predominantly. I mean, that's what we do a lot of throughout the year. It's kind of like and music is always involved in anything we do, whether it's at the Plein Air Easton or not. So I've been trying to think, like, are they going to be able to recreate somehow? Virtual reality doesn't seem to have done it yet. Are they going to be able to recreate the concert atmosphere or something like the concert atmosphere of a live sort of thing?
I think
This is my-
I think for current state and current technology, which is advancing exponentially by the second,
Yes.
they will be able to recreate a lot of that.
Well, but my question is does plein air, this type of event, if they were able to do that, they're saying, okay, hey, everybody's going to buy AI art. It's better, it's good, it's awesome, it's like whatever. But seeing the person paint it live in person, a la seeing a concert live in person.
Well, that's where it's going. I'm gonna take you right on that. You can recreate the concert experience in a lot of ways, even with speakers and vibrations at home. However, if you've ever seen an artist pull out an acoustic guitar in an intimate setting, I mean a stadium as well, but intimate setting, there's that experience. Now to painting, there isn't currently anything existing. I know they're working on it exponentially faster. But like you said, you see the artist paint it.
Well, because with the concert, you're with 500 people, 19,000 other people. How could they recreate that through AI? That's really what I'm talking about, because it is about the whole thing. And then the plein air painting is the same way. Like, how could they can't create, or maybe through the lithographs or whatever they're called, the bringing Tupac back or whatever. How could they create the whole process of like walking through town and seeing a painter actually painting live right there?
They can't.
Can they do that? That's my question.
I don't have a
so.
permanent answer, but to wrap up this, we are now at a point in time where 2 years ago we couldn't hug, and now you can hug. So
nobody's
there's a
hugging.
difference between
Nobody's doing it.
Well, that's just your own
Tim's
personal.
like, I'm out of the hugging scene.
That's Tim's.
No,
aura.
I'm
That's
right.
Tim.
The world is a lovable place, but they're certainly not hugging each other out there right now. A
Oh
whole lot
no,
of it.
not everybody. I was just saying that there's the
Permission hugging
human
online.
touch on a painting the love that goes into it, even if you don't get to hug the artist. For
you
those
don't
of you
hug.
that are only listening to this, I'm now making a very wide gesture with my hands.
He's ready to hug you.
Thank goodness we have this table between us.
I don't know. It's just it's something I guess that they don't really want to talk about a lot in the art
Okay.
world. But it's.
Well, I
just-
believe Caggiano wanted to talk about that during his demo tomorrow.
AI?
Yeah, yeah. That's all he wants to talk about down at Tillman.
We'll go there tomorrow. Then talk about it.
Right now, let's get back to
All right.
art
Okay.
and
All right.
creating.
Kurt is in charge of this interview. Go ahead. What else do you want? Go ahead. What art and creativity?
So I'm interested in how you plan your year. Like when you are sitting down and like I'm thinking about like this competition, that competition, this competition, and how, if at all, it has changed. I can imagine an artist when they first get in and they are accepted to events, and then you reach a level where you can be a little bit more selective, or you know what I mean? Like, do you find that your schedule is ramping up, or are you kind of like leveling out to just preferred events that you enjoy the most, or how does your planning work?
Generally, one of the most important things for me is it something I want to paint? Because over the past 15 years.
You mean like the geographic area that
an
competition
atmosphere, a subject matter, a place I haven't been.
Okay.
I'll see images that were painted from other artists in previous years and go, hey, I've never been to like West Texas.
is? Sure.
And Nova Scotia, things like that, Florida Keys. There are places I love to go, and there's things that I like to paint. Primarily for me is what I'm going to be painting, even if it's a smaller fledgling event, I'll keep that in mind. But I'm only mildly distracted that the air conditioning just dropped down to 55. Marie, for
Kirk's
those
cold.
of you
Kirk
listening,
is cold.
for those of you that are listening, well, I got heat conditioned for this.
And then we shocked you.
And for those of you that are only listening, Marie is now in her third layer of faux fur. She's got a ski outfit. She actually has skis with her.
I'm taking my shirt off right now.
Okay, some of the plants just died. Sorry, Tim. I've known Tim now for 13 years, and he's just
wonderful.
We're at the point where we can kid at each other like brothers, and Tim's still alive, so he defied a lot of odds.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay. I picked the events on what I want to paint. Also, I only enter events, and this went back to Plein Air Easton in the first place, that offer host housing.
Okay, so that's
Before an
important
artist
component.
leaves the house, they can be already into the event for, at minimal, $2,000, as much as $8,000 to $10,000. If
Wow,
somebody's
okay.
flying in, we're real blessed here that JFM is set up and available to sell frames or bring orders to us,
Right.
other than shipping charges. But transporting painting frames are one thing. We'd have to ship them to the event. And then we've also make paintings. Now we've got paintings in them. Some will sell, some may not. And then there's housing, there's food, there's time away. You still have the bills at home.
Sure.
So I'm looking for host housing, nice people, good event, good subject matter, preferably, and
Are
time.
nasty people doing plein air events?
Who looks for
I
good
couldn't
people all the
resist.
time?
Yeah. Hey, is the
What are the nasty people doing?
is the person heading the event going through a life crisis?
Who
That's
isn't?
for me.
Yeah, right?
So those are some of the primary things. Now, when I travel, I'm bringing my clothing. I have to bring clothing for the main event. I was dressing up. Actually, I'll say John Caggiano and myself, always from my first event on, we always showed up with a tie. Tim did, what did he say, evolve to that, and
Yeah.
he's a great proponent of it. Thank you very much for
So
that.
packing considerations are one?
So then I've got to bring a suit. I did an event in the Florida Keys, and we had a midweek event that required tuxedos.
Wow. they
Packing
really
a
bring it.
tuxedo for Florida, yeah. But we've got to bring clothing. Then there's food. Then there's a portable cooler. There's paint supplies, brushes, canvases.
It is a
substrates.
lot
So
of
does it
stuff.
have
It's
to
a lot
be
of
like
stuff
a
that you guys have.
drivable
It's-
distance, or
Uh,
like
there
is
are-
that your
But
consideration?
there are artists that do fly in, and so there's a little more weight on their head than someone who's like within an hour or
Of
two.
course, right.
And then, very important, what are sales like at an event? From the beginning, the experience for me was Plein Air Easton was taking care of bringing in buyers. We've hit a few hiccups along the way, and one year I did 9 events. That's not the most by any chance.
Okay.
Some artists are on the road and they're set up at home to where they can be on the road for 3 months. I was speaking with Lon Brower the other day, and he's got a couple events back to back in October that are going to take him from Gloucester, Massachusetts to San Angelo, Texas, and then to Alabama, all within a 5-week period. And if
We should have Lon on the podcast again.
Yeah,
and talk about
let's
his
call him right
travel
now.
schedule.
yeah, let's interrupt his painting and say, look, we
But I'm asking
go.
you.
yes. So, remind me of what you were asking. I thought it was
All right.
answered.
Has your schedule like does
Yeah.
does it peak when you start? Does it level out? Do you get more selective as you get
What
more
time do you
events
wake up in the
under your
morning?
belt?
What time do you wake up in the morning?
Or that question?
I'm
It's
gonna
part of
go
your
with
schedule.
I'm going to go with that's it. Yeah.
It's your schedule,
You're
right?
starting from the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do?
So I have lightened it up a little bit. I mean, the elephant in the room, and not even an elephant, the pandemic in the room put a halt on everything, and the only event that went on that year was Pandemic Plein Air, which I could do a whole separate podcast about the luxurious lemonade you made from a very difficult
Yes.
situation and being over at Talbot Town. And those of you that were here, or you can backtrack and find the images, I included the Pandemic Plein Air stamp in some of my paintings. And
That was great. That was
paintings of the Avalon closed, which was kind of a shocker and a gut wrench.
sad.
And painting that at night
Yeah.
was quite a thing. Back to the scheduling. I've lightened it up, not necessarily all by choice. Sometimes I don't get in. Or sometimes the distance conflicts with another event. And I don't want to put too much pressure. I always want to drive safely. But so that's pretty much my criteria.
Okay.
And I, what the heck? I was racing on a sailboat on Wednesday night
Okay.
as an official alternate for another event. And it's one of my favorite ones where I get to paint the Atlantic Ocean even during nor'easters, as long as it's not raining. And I was trimming Maine on a Sovereign 33. Shout out to my crewmates on Sabotage.
There you go.
That's the name of the boat. And we're approaching the windward mark, and there's a lot to do trimming that Maine. And my phone rings, and I'm not going to answer it. And I see on my watch that it's somebody from this other event. And I'm like, oh no, I better take that call. And
You can shout them out. Go ahead.
Okay,
We love our
so-
sister organization.
so I saw it was Cape Ann Plein Air, and I picked up the
Yay.
phone and said, if you're calling to say I'm in, that's great. I'm on a boat. I'm trimming Maine. I'm crewing. We're approaching the windward mark. I got to go. You're in. Bye.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Yeah, very good.
So,
Very good.
and they just shifted their schedule, and so I'll be able to attend my family reunion in early October.
Who
before
knows?
the
One day, Plein Air Easton might make a field trip up there and come watch you guys paint and sit on the other side. How's that?
I think you absolutely should put in
I
your
think so,
schedule right
too.
now.
I think so too. I need to talk to my bosses about it.
Yeah, it's always
Or
cool
just
when
make
you
it
go out.
happen.
You think like, well, it's we're gonna watch people paint, but again, last night was magical. The rest of this week's gonna be magical as well. It's really, really cool. I've really grown on me over 20 years. And again, we're talking with Kirk Larsen here for during the Plein Air Easton podcast. Kurt, we're gonna get ready. We're gonna ask a couple more questions. We got some rapid fire going for you as well. But I wanted to ask. Well, I just had it.
If a train leaves Chicago at 60 miles an hour, is anybody
Keep that
taught
going.
this
Keep that going.
question?
Keep
Yeah.
that going. Yeah, keep that thought going.
You were asking
No,
about
no,
my schedule.
You're gonna do a demo later today, and I don't want you to talk about what you're gonna do exactly today. But what do you try to bring across when you're doing a demo?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Like what do you try to get people to sort of?
One thing I've kept in the forefront for all my demos since I started doing it, because I've watched other artists demonstrate, is I feel that the audience, especially artists, want to know what's the mindset. What are you actually thinking about while you're creating this?
Okay.
So I used to be vice president of a local art group, and we had somebody come in with this very particular method of teaching, and he said, okay, I'm going to paint this barn now. And I'm not going to mention it, but it's a particular school of thought where you pre-mix 64 colors.
Wow.
And it's very formulaic. This is the color in light, this is the color in shadow, and my approach is more observational based and mixing on the fly, so to speak. But he said, I'm going to paint this barn, and then he didn't say another word for 50 minutes. And that was it. And the audience is like, well, what were what did you do? So I share the mindset, even if there's a moment where I find a color, a shape, or something isn't quite working, I want to let them know that I'm experiencing that for a moment because I will get out of it. And I think it's important for artists of every strata, if you're just starting out or if you're a professional, sometimes you think, hey, man, that guy painted a great painting today. They look like they had it so easy. And it's not always that way. So I'll share my process. I'll share my thoughts, my intentions, why I'm putting a color there. I share anecdotes while I'm painting. But I say, it's kind of like talking on a Bluetooth speaker when you're driving. There's times when there's just going to be silence. So I say, sometimes I have to just concentrate on a piece of the
Lay
painting.
that paint down, right?
And I will tell you what I was doing in a moment. What
is that? What is that? What do you mean sometimes you have to concentrate specifically? What's going on in that process? I mean, I know what's going on, but like,
if I'm
is it
talking...
a feather you're making or something?
If
or?
I'm talking about, okay, I'm doing a stormy sky, and it's like, yeah, this one time I was out on the bridge, and now I'm about to do a very particular exchange or counter exchange of color in the sky. I might stop telling the story and just concentrate on what I'm doing.
What's a counter exchange?
Because it's like
that's a new term I came up with to fill the space while I search for the word.
Well, exchange. Yeah, what's an exchange when you say there's something going on there? What does that mean? Like it's hard to do.
No, a juxtaposition of a color, a blend. A nuance, lighting effects of sunlight coming through stormy clouds or something might be, and I'll say, look, I want this to be yellow or I want this to be a little orange. By the way, if you're listening and you can't see this, I'm now gesturing with my hands like I was patting a watermelon. Okay.
So it's like when you're driving and you're lost and you turn the radio down.
Okay.
No,
okay,
it's like when you're
help.
when you're driving to an event like Olmsted in Atlanta and these people are changing 5 lanes to cut in front of you, and you stop talking to whoever you're talking to watch this very important moment and save your life. That's a little dramatic.
Kirk, when you painting boats and I noticed that a lot of the winners that get the grand prize here and that sort of thing are really like something of it has like they've really captured the light. Do you practice painting different types of light that we see? I mean, like in other words, the reflection on that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So that ties in multiple subjects here. When I got in my first year, I took a note from another artist who'd gotten in the year before, who had a semi-regular blog post he was doing, and he said, I'm getting to Easton. Now, I know when I want to go out and paint. Oh, it's sunny, I want to go paint. Oh, that's really dramatic light, I want to paint. He said, but when I get to Easton, and this counts for any event, it might be hot, it might be hazy, it might be drizzly, it might be cloudy all day. Let me paint in different conditions.
Okay.
And for those of you that are watching on camera, behind me, my easel's set up, and there's 2 cans hanging off. Oh, sorry, turning away from the microphone. That's a necessary evil here. There's 2 cans hanging off the right side, and there's another, what was a prototype for a brush holder. I made those during my own experiments of painting for Easton. So I was going out regularly in bizarre conditions. So one day I went out, it was blowing around 20 miles an hour with gusts to 30. And that's when I found out that when there's not a lot of medium in the can, it will blow off your easel.
Right, yeah.
So
yeah,
I
right.
found a way to click it to my easel, but there wasn't room for my palette to move easily. So, okay, I need a can that hangs lower than my easel. And I want one for clean thinner and one for less dirty thinner, and one will fit in the other. So for those of you who can see it, and
You're
those
so
of you
smart.
that can't, it's a salmon can, which incidentally they stack, and the other is a canned mushroom one.
Okay.
And those are prototypes I made in the spring of 2011 before doing Easton, and they still work.
Yep.
To help you capture the light. I'm talking about like techniques for painting light. Like,
No, that's
it's the
tied
thinner,
in.
the paint thinner?
So no, I'm saying that I went out and practiced under different conditions. So I went out when it was bright. I went out when it was cloudy, and I did practice sunsets, so to speak.
Are there different color whites you use and that sort of thing? Is that what you're talking about? Like, I mean, I've just been watching. I've talked to artists about that, and they're like, yeah, well, you really had to hit it this way. And I've spent like 2 years learning this technique to get, you go through that as well, or are you just
Somewhere around
acting too much, or doing sculptures where you can't really do all that? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
somewhere around 8 years ago, I found myself taking notes when I saw a painting that took my breath away that wasn't mine, and I said, okay, well, what is it about this painting that I really love? And it might be dramatic light. It might be the nuance of a hill in the distance or a color in the water. And what I found after a couple months of taking notes and seeing maybe a dozen paintings I loved, what I was really loving were the grays. Now this is an exchange where one color softens into another. And while an artist can work with a limited palette and make just about every color there is, there are some colors that, although somewhat transparent, and in my early starving artist days, it's like we went for the cheap colors. And so you went for the or good colors, but I would go for the most potent, lemon yellow, phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, ultramarine. I wanted these high key colors, which I couldn't mix, but then I could mix them all down. At the point when I started to discover I liked the grays, I started to really enjoy transparent earth red. I still had the Payne's gray from junior high school that I'd never used. And I started to use these other colors that will tint and influence, but very subtly, because that affects you, say, wow, look at the light in there. Have a closer look. Some of it has to do with how light one color is, or how dark, or how nuanced the transition. That's a better word. Mm-hmm. And if you're an artist, continue to grow, continue to observe. I was at a perhaps permanently on hiatus event in Frederick, Maryland, and called Easels in Frederick. And I passed Shelby Keefe, who was painting a building, and it looked like she was having so much fun. It was the last day of painting, and I said, I'm not stopping to paint till I know I can have that much fun. That looked like so much more fun. So rather than drive around the few blocks we were limited to, I parked the car, walked around, found a spot. And it turns out, at that event, the very first painting I did at the beginning of the week won the grand prize. And that painting that had all that fun won the collector's choice.
Nice, right. So that's your message to artists, you were saying, is to make sure you're having fun or whatever, or that type of thing.
Have fun. I'm one of my personal go-tos is I always do a quick thumbnail just to narrow down what it is that I'm feeling.
That's hard to get what you want in the picture, right? I mean, like,
Well-
you look at it, it's, you know.
Well, if you're
I look at this
standing-
room, I could start with that railing up there. I could start, you know, it's like,
But if
where
you-
do you, how you narrow, you know?
You're standing at the party last night, you're looking out, and you say, well, what do I love about it? And you say, I just love the light over here. And then there's these easels, and then there's this building. So you already identified in your first thing, I love the light over here.
Yeah.
So sometimes an artist might go out to paint a nocturne, and you're looking at this waterfront view, and there's a street light, and it's hitting this door, and there's a boat in the darkness. And as I did with my own sketch on a similar night, I looked at it and I said, I want to make sure I get the light on this doorway. Saying it out loud gets an audience with your brain much quicker than thinking it. When you think a thought, it gets online with every other thought in the universe, including what am I having for breakfast tomorrow and what did I say wrong in 5th grade.
I can't say all those things in my brain right now.
No.
Yeah.
I'd be in trouble.
Gone.
And then, but when I say,
But I get your point.
But when I say it out loud, I hear it.
I get
It's
you.
like fight or flight.
That's good.
So I end up painting the light with the doorway. I've gotten to the subject. That thumbnail is if I can do it in 30 seconds to a minute, I've identified my subject matter. And the other stuff is optional.
Right, gotcha.
Nice.
All right, listen. So, Kurt, we've never done this with you before. We're going to go to rapid fire. Ready? Nick, are you ready for rapid fire in the tech office there? This is rapid fire. Ready? Here we go.
Shout out to Lil G.
Ready? Here we go.
All right. First answer, cake or pie?
Cake,
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
pumpkin pie.
What? You can't.
I got caught off guard there.
We're going to hold this witness. He's a
Just
hostile
disqualified
witness,
yourself.
ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I make
a
my
hostile
mother's version of pumpkin pie, and even if you don't like pumpkin pie, I'll give you the recipe, or I'll make it for you one day, and it will blow your mind.
What's your
away.
mom's best cake? If cake's your favorite.
I know cake's your favorite, but
pumpkin
my favorite's
pie's-
pumpkin pie.
Cheesecake?
He wins.
Cheesecake
He wins.
with a
He
graham
win-
cracker crust.
He wins.
All right, keep going. Come on.
Your most despised chore?
Paperwork.
Paperwork.
Yes. What was your first concert that you ever attended?
Joni Mitchell.
Oh,
Wow.
no, it wasn't.
How
No, it
fa-
wasn't.
how
No,
fa-
it wasn't.
And not only that, the
Nice.
first album I owned, I won a contest for poster design in like, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade, and it was one free album from Sam Ash in Plainview, and I got Court and Spark. So I thought later in life, I'm pretty hip.
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell.
Nice.
That's a good one. Still doesn't beat Susie Moore's was Kiss. It doesn't beat that, but it's up there.
Susie-
Joni Mitchell's is good.
I haven't gotten a kiss from Susie Moore.
Well, there's still time, Kurt.
Mine was John Denver, but nobody asked me, so
Mine was REO
You
Speedwagon.
kissed John Denver?
it really went downhill fast.
Okay, next.
If you were to give somebody a book, what's your book that you would pass off?
Jen Sincero, You Are a Badass. How to stop
that's
how to
just
stop
so-
doubting yourself and live your awesome life.
You are a badass. That is so cool. Who inspires you? Artist, prominent figure, alive,
Friend.
dead? First impression.
Genevieve Jezik.
Oh, yay,
Close friend of
Genevieve,
mine.
We miss
don't know
An
any of these
amazing artist and a great pattern maker and just generally all around great soul.
you. Awesome. I love that. And yeah, that wraps
Okay.
up my
come
Here's
on.
one.
list.
What is the best sandwich?
Oh, that's been Tim's favorite.
Hot, wet, fatty corned beef on seeded rye with a whole bunch of brown mustard, not yellow mustard.
Do you have a go-to deli that?
Actually,
best?
I do it.
What's your
There's
recommendation?
a place in East Meadow, New York, or Levittown, New York, called Pastrami that's really good. However, my go-to is once a year when the sale comes around. St. Patrick's Day. We get a whole bunch of corned beef, slow cook it, oil it.
Oh, you do it yourself.
Oh, do it myself.
Oh.
And then you get either a really great local rye bread and not too thick. You don't need anything bigger than 3/8. And just that there used to be place in New York City, this series of Irish bars, and you could go in and they'd have this hot table and they'd have soaking in the hot water pastrami, maybe the name will come to me in a moment, pastrami or corned beef, and you ordered it and they took it out and sliced it fresh.
Wow.
And I don't
Sounds
know, is-
amazing. Makes me
I'm getting
very
hungry here just thinking about it.
Is-
What's the best color?
Blue,
Blue. There we go. All right.
blue.
Kurt, this has been awesome. We appreciate you kicking off this for us. And we haven't done a podcast in a while, so we're kind of getting back into our things as well. I don't know why we didn't. We normally do these once or twice a month. And they're online at pleinair.easton.com. You can listen. We've interviewed a lot. I mean, probably about 30 or 40 artists on there. And I think Kurt has one, two. You'll be the second time here.
yeah.
But
I got something I want to interject
Go-
real quick
yes,
while they're still
what do you
listening
do?
before
Yeah.
it's rolling in credits. I want to urge everybody that hears this, if you have not already, get yourself an original piece of art. Doesn't have to be from this event, but it could be. Go down to your local gallery or whatever and find even a small piece, even an inexpensive piece as a starter, or you can go for something in the hundreds or thousands. Doesn't matter. When you put that first piece of art on your wall, your life changes forever because now you know you can do that. I'm an artist, and sometimes people are surprised to find out that artists collect art. And when I hang a piece of art on my wall, it never needs batteries. It always gives me joy because I picked it. But that one little thing makes you realize, hey, it doesn't have to be a clock. It doesn't have to be something pre-made from a chain store. You just, it makes a difference. You buy something on vacation or whatever, original art gives off an energy like no else.
It's
And
really true.
it will comfort you, it will uplift you, it will inspire you, and you can, and you can move stuff in your house. That's a new thing. I told people they don't know where they're going to hang the new painting. I said, there's something you know belongs in that
Try
spot.
it in the living room. Try it in the dining room.
Move the
see
clock
what it
or
looks
move
like in
the thing
kitchen.
temporarily. And when your friends and neighbors see it, they go, oh, this would go great by your kitchen. Or why don't you put this in the hall? You know?
Sure. Well, Kurt, I think you've told me that message myself, so we really appreciate that. And if you do come in town or you have a chance to meet Kirk, he's a great artist to get to know, to talk about this. Very forthcoming and just a good spirit as well. So we really appreciate your candidness, Kurt. And, again, thank you for coming back to do this. Marie, do you have credits you want to talk about? We're at the Plein Air Easton headquarters. There are some collector's party tickets left over.
Yes, there are collectors.
We'll be here
party
all
tickets.
week until next Sunday. What else you want to say, Marie? as we
The
talk about this?
headquarters opens every day at 10 except for Thursday. We will be closed on Thursday so the artists can turn in. Today is Sunday, July 16th, and we are going to be in Oxford this evening at an exhibit that's open to everybody. So from 5 until 6:30, come see what the artists have produced down there.
And again, Kurt will be doing his, if you're close in town listening or in the area, about a half an hour, Kurt will start his, what I think is going to be a very, very beneficial
Live demo.
live demo.
Yes, and I must say too, I had somebody stop me the other day and say that the caliber of demonstrations that is happening during Plein Air Easton is really off the charts. It's such a high caliber.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then all free.
and they're all free. So please,
It's an
please
artistic
come support
week.
your
It's an
local.
artistic venture for the Avalon. We'd
And-
love to, yes, go ahead.
At Plein Air Easton, artists are spread out initially over quite a wide area than in Talbot County than in Easton. But in this case, you can actually watch a painting start, sometimes to finish or most way. But to
Right.
watch it actually being created in an atmosphere where you can hear the artist talk about what they're doing and their thought pattern
Right.
is just so enriching. I mean, it's kind of like binge watching a great Netflix series, but all in an hour or an hour and a half.
And it's also really cool too, I think, about these demos that I've seen, and I miss it almost every time, but it goes from being paint to being a painting. Like you could go get a glass of water and come back and they've hit a stroke somewhere, and I'm like, I miss it. I'm like, oh my God, there's the fence or there's the side of the building. So that whole process is really, really entertaining to watch, and look for those little moments of like, oh, now it's actually, it's turning into what he's talking about or she's talking about or whatever. Kurt, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We really
Thank
appreciate
Marie.
it.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you guys, and we
Tim?
will talk to you later this week. Thanks.